This is the second part of a two-part conversation about one of Gordon Lightfoot's songs. The first part of this episode was released at an earlier date and is available for listening online. I hope you enjoy the conclusion of the conversation between me and my guest. Thank you in advance for listening.
The first guest of the evening is truly a poet. He's an artist. He is a friend and an inspiration to anyone who has ever played the guitar or tried to write poetry. Would you please welcome Gordon Lightfoot?
Gord could sit down and say, okay, it's time to write. The melody always came first with him, if I'm not mistaken.
I know that he would have long sessions where he would just be full and he would say, okay, I'm not leaving here until I get this written, which says a lot about both his inspiration and his discipline. I was talking about this with Jerry Candiston on the last episode. You usually think of songwriters as being kind of like the balladeer who's, I've got a idea about this and I got to write it on my shirt sleeve or on a napkin or something like that. Lightfoot would go someplace and lock the door and say, okay, I'm not finished here. I'm going to have whiskey, cigarettes, amphetamines, and my pad of paper, and I'm not leaving till I have this album written.
And I think he's felt pressure too.
He would say in public interviews, I was under contract to produce an album a year or 2 albums a year, or whatever it might have been at the time. And he felt the pressure of that. He wanted to sit down and get it done. I don't view him as a procrastinator in writing.
No, neither do I. But I do see him being as dedicated in a way that most artists
absolutely
probably aren't.
I can tell you that. I think it's highly unusual that
a writer could sit down and have that kind of discipline, be a performer too.
Yeah. And God love him for that.
Yeah, that's right.
There are no official covers that I can find of this song. And I realize that you've performed it and put it in your set.
I never have recorded it. I don't know why, because it's one of my favorite songs.
Any thoughts on why no one bothered to cover this? I mean, is it just too obscure or what?
I don't know.
It's a very catchy song. The instrumentation in it builds and builds and builds, particularly when the dobro comes in. Mm-hmm. And I'm a dobro nut. I love the dobro and the effect it can have on a song. Yeah, I covered Did She Mention My Name and used dobro in the second part of the second break, the long break, and Did She Mention My Name? And it worked.
Well, you picked a good one to use a dobro on.
Pee Wee's an excellent dobro player.
Oh, yeah. And right up there with anyone. I mean, I'd put him up against anybody. It's a pretty simple song, at least as far as a guitarist would be concerned. I mean, there's no weird chords in there. The arrangement is pretty straightforward. It's not as if it's going to require, to carry it off, you need to have a symphony with you.
I think it's similar in a sense to the record of Edmund Fitzgerald, and you have that riff. And that same riff is played on the guitar over and over again. Then the dobro picks it up in the background, doing fills and all that kind of stuff. And I think that riff really helps make the song, the guitar riff.
Is there anyone that you wish would do a cover of this besides yourself?
Well, I have to think about that.
I would think, well, if he were still alive, Don Williams could have done stuff with that. Nobody comes to mind.
The song was played 41 times in concert, and all of that happened in the space of 3 years. The first time was at a place called Humphreys in San Diego, which I don't know anything about. And then the last time was in Red Bank, New Jersey at the Count Basie Theater in April of 2002. That was the beginning, the middle, and the end. Yeah. He never played it before, and he never played it after. Not really sure why.
It's a neat song to do on stage. People will be thinking about it as they go along. People like you and me and so many others are Lightfoot files. We know every song that he ever recorded and so forth and so on. So did your knowledge of all these sets and the shows that were played come from the lightfoot.ca, Wayne Francis's website?
Yeah.
I figured so. That guy's amazing.
Yes, he is. And here's a shout out to him. So the people who played on the album, you might have a better idea about who actually played on the song, but the people who played on the album, Lightfoot, of course, Rick, Terry, Barry Keane, Michael Heffernan, Pee Wee, So we know about them. What we're not as clear on, okay, Dean Parks played electric guitar, but I can't really hear a whole lot of electric guitar on this one.
I can't hear Dean in there. I listened to the song several times in the last couple of days to try to prepare for this interview. And what I heard was basically the basic band plus Pee Wee's dobro.
Yeah. I don't hear any synthesizers.
I don't hear any of Mike. I don't hear anything in there. Although it could be way down in the mix. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to it also several times and I can't hear anything. Victor Feldman was playing percussion, but you already have Barry playing, drums and percussion. So I don't think Victor was sitting in on it. And then the only other person was Herb
Peterson on the harmony vocals. Now, Herb's a longtime friend of mine. He was a member of the Dillards.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
After Doug Dillard left the band, he joined as the banjo player. He's a great multi-instrumentalist.
That had Dewey Martin as the drummer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he was the harmony singer and also a lead player on guitar and banjo for John Denver for several years. Yeah. Herb lives in L.A. He's a great guy and a tremendous talent. He was in the Desert Rose Band with John Jorgensen and Chris Hillman.
So he did really make his mark then.
Yeah, and he's a great arranger of songs and a harmony arranger.
Now, here's my question for you. Gord was not known for harmonizing with other singers. Many times, most times, he would just overdub his own harmonies. So he's not well known for duetting with anyone. So I guess what I'm wondering is, can you tell that Herb sang on this just by the vocal chemistry?
I've never talked to him about this, although I could. We're still in touch. It seems to me that it's so smooth. Gord's harmonies aren't that great.
No.
Singing with himself. And Rick certainly aren't. All due respect to Rick, I hope you're not listening, Rick. I want to say that. But
if you are, Rick, I want you to be a guest on the show.
That's right, Rick. Refute me. And Terry certainly wasn't a very good harmony singer. But it worked. It was just the way he did things. But I hear, it's a smooth song. I hear Herb in there. I may be wrong.
I'll take your word for it, because I don't want to say that Gord's harmonies with himself were bad. They just weren't very exciting.
No. Herb was a superb harmony singer. That was probably his forte, and he made a lot of money doing that.
So you had mentioned that Pee Wee's dobro was a notable part of it. Would you say that that is your favorite musical part of the song?
Absolutely, because it builds up to a point where all of a sudden here comes the dobro in, and the song is building and building and building, and it really helps build the song to its climax. And the riffs are so good. The fills are so good. Of course, the guitar riff is the basic riff and is a beautiful riff by Terry.
Terry's work on that is my favorite part.
Is it true, and I've never asked Gord this, but is it true that on Rick that he hummed that break to Terry before Terry cut it?
I don't know, but it would.
You remember that was a first take song. The band had never heard it.
Correct. It wouldn't surprise me a bit, but I don't know. I'd heard they got it on one take, same as the wreck.
They'd never played it before.
Well, that I didn't know.
Oh, yeah. Comes in, I've got a new song, here it is. And I don't know who said, why don't we just, maybe Rick said, let's try it. And it came out on the first take. Can you imagine a 7-minute song? I don't know if it had happened before, going to #2 on the Billboard pop charts about a wreck of a freighter in the Great Lakes.
Well, I think that is remarkable in itself. If you put another lightning striking moment, which is that they got the thing in one take.
I know.
Never having heard it, that says so much about the tightness of the band. I don't think there's another band in the last 2 centuries.
I think one of his secrets of his success was using that band in his recordings for the most part.
Oh, yeah. There were sidemen that the label made him work with. And Jim Gordon did session work, and Randy Newman had to do some arranging, even though I don't think his work was as good as other people's. But
Jim Gordon was the drummer, right?
Jim Gordon was the session drummer, yes.
Session drummer. Now, I think that he was session drummer in Nashville on a couple of Gord's Nashville albums.
That's right, he was.
But that may have been before he brought Barry into the band.
No, that's absolutely right. Because you remember, Jerry, that there wasn't a drummer on live performances for a very long time.
That's right.
And then later on, they did bring Barry, or maybe they had a local drummer at some point sit in. But Jim Gordon was given album credit. until Barry was incorporated into the unit.
You're listening to Carefree Highway Revisited. We'll be right back after a word from a podcast partner or two.
Radio is so much different than it was in the 80s. We had it all. The music, the movies, the DJs, and morning shows. Back to the 80s Radio is a show from the 80s in podcast form. We bring the memories from that awesome decade back. Join Toscano and Chang every Friday as they take you on a ride back in time, sharing their experiences and laughs. Stop on by and discover some of the wacky things this crazy duo comes up with. They talk about it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the greatest decade. Don't miss the greatest 80s podcast in the world. Back to the 80s Radio.
No one can tell the true stories of the West better than author Rick Steber. And now there's a podcast showcasing his work. It's called Writing the West, and every episode will feature his short stories and his poetry. If you want to know the true stories of cowboys, pioneers, miners, and Native Americans, this 15-minute podcast is for you. Writing the West is available on Spotify, Audible, Podbean, or wherever you get your listening matter. That's Writing the West, the work of Rick Steber.
We've kind of touched on Billy Strings, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about who he is, what his connection is to Gord, and your connection to Billy.
Billy Strings, in my opinion, and I'm saying this, and he's 31 years old, is the finest lead acoustic guitar player I have ever seen or heard. And I'm echoed by Tommy Emmanuel on that, who I thought was the best before I heard Billy Strings. Now, this guy has bluegrass roots. He was raised in Lansing, Michigan, in a home of meth heads. Never got on the stuff. He got away from there when he was 9 years old and moved up to Traverse City, which is a resort place there on the lake, where there were a lot of bluegrass people and so forth. But his mother was a druggie, and then either the original father passed away or went somewhere else, and she married again, and he was a very good bluegrass guitar player.
Okay.
And so Billy started playing when he was 5 or 6 years old, and he really had a talent for playing. He made the keynote address here in Chattanooga this past week at the International Bluegrass Music Association Awards, and he talked about the fact that he had long hair. He was excluded from jams if he'd go to festivals when he was first starting out. And his point in the keynote address was that bluegrass needs to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
If you think of bluegrass music, you don't think of anything except a guitar, a banjo, a mandolin, a bass, and a fiddle. And there are not that many different melodies in the bluegrass business, the straight-ahead bluegrass business. So he starts out as straight-ahead bluegrass, and then he starts branching out. He's a great songwriter. So this kid is playing clubs, and by the time he's 25 or so, he goes to Nashville just to seek his fortune, and he starts playing in clubs there. And still he's having trouble getting anybody to want to play with him, so he cut his hair. Then he started playing with these guys at clubs and so forth and so on. And then, I don't know exactly how this happened, but they got a break and they got an agent that would book him in small theaters. And now, this guy, 3 years later, outside of the stadium, people like Taylor Swift and Garth Brooks and Kenny Chesney and all those kind of people, he's the biggest act in show business now. It's also a jam band.
Okay.
Some of the songs can go 9 or 10 minutes. But when this guy, and I did not see this in person, but I'm constantly looking at YouTube for videos, concert videos, of which he and his management are smart enough to post a whole lot through a site called nugs.net, which televises every show that he has. All of a sudden, I look on there, and it said Gordon Lightfoot's Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, Billy Strings, Asheville, North Carolina, April of this year. And he does this intro, which is like almost the building up of a symphony. This kid could play with symphonies, I guarantee you right now. I don't think he knows music theory. He may or may not. I think he knows the guitar very well. But he is just an immense talent. He's very likable. He has the long flowing hair. The headbangers like him. His shows in arenas, the front half of the floor is all standing. They're moving and moving and moving and moving as he's playing and playing. And these other guys he has with him, Billy Failing on the banjo and Alex Hargraves on the fiddle, Jared Walker on mandolin and Royal Masad on the bass. These guys are world class on their instruments. And they've been together now for about 6 years and apparently must be very close. So he goes into this riff. It's about 3 minutes long. And then the one that he did from Milwaukee, which of course would resonate with the crowd and did, it was about 5 minutes long, the opening riff. And then he did a riff in the middle where he just went all over the place, but it's always that bum, 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 in some form or fashion, way up the neck and whatever. And it just flows and flows and flows. He sings it well. I know Gord would have been so proud of this cut. He reveres Gord. I got to speak with him for a second at the convention here. And we did the keynote, and I said, how did you come to do Lightfoot's record, the Edmund Fitzgerald? He said, oh, Jerry, Gordon Lightfoot is one of my music heroes. I'm going to do more of his stuff.
I think I need to see if I can get this guy on the show.
You really should. You really should. I think he would be a great guest. He's very articulate, very bright. He was a young alcoholic, but he hadn't had a drink in years.
I'm going to have to listen to this guy and watch him play. For my money, the best guy to ever play on acoustic guitar that was not sort of sandwiched into the country field, because Chet Atkins was in a class by himself, and so is Doc Watson.
This kid is better than Doc Watson.
The point I'm making is that right now Stephen Stills is at the very top of my pyramid for acoustic guitar players. Anybody who thought Eric Clapton was God hadn't heard Stills play acoustic guitar.
Just check out Billy's videos.
I will.
You'll see what I mean. Okay. I've never seen anybody do what he does on the guitar. And whether it's fast or slow, it doesn't matter. And he's written a lot of great topical songs, like one called Away from the Mire, which is about how he was brought up in the meth houses and so forth and so on, and how he got away from that. It's such a beautiful melody, and he changes tempos on it. He's just a genius at putting this stuff together. And you say, man, his roots are in bluegrass. At one time, he was a metal player.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
When his teens.
Thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this well enough to listen to the whole thing, tell somebody about it. Carefree Highway Revisited is on Apple, Spotify, Acast, or wherever you get your listening matter. I'd like to make a special request for you to visit my Patreon page. I love this show so much, and I want to keep it going, and you're in a position to help. Please head over to www.patreon.com/carefreehighwayrevisited. $1 or $2 a month is all I ask. You can reach me, Mike Messner, at teachermike72@gmail.com.